So you've just bought a Panasonic Lumix GF1. Now let me take you through the features of your new camera. Hi, I'm John Bentham. I'm a professional photographer based in New York City. Shoot a lot of stuff for magazines, record companies, advertising, that kind of thing. Over my career, I've used many different cameras. What we're looking at today, this one I'm holding the GF1, brand new. It's part of their micro 4/3 system. What that means is there's a what we call an X factor. By reducing the sensor size, they've managed to reduce the size of the camera. Still get very good quality images, but the camera, the body, the lenses themselves, much smaller, much more compact. A lot of features. On-off switch on top, very straightforward. And then your selector dial on top here. For this, the red setting, intelligent auto. And what that will do is it'll compensate for bright subjects. It gives you a relatively fast shutter speed. Why you might need a fast shutter speed if you're trying to freeze action, if you're shooting a car, a horse, your kids running, that sort of thing. There's also a setting program. And what that does is combines shutter speed and aperture, so the camera is picking both those. The shutter speed is the duration of time that the shutter is open, meaning the duration of time that the camera is actually taking a photograph. And that can be a fraction of a second, 1/1000th of a second, all the way up to multiple seconds. Aperture is the size of the opening in the lens. And what happens when you take a picture, just a fraction of a second before the picture, the lens actually constrict to make a small aperture or a large aperture. Think of it as a window. A big window lets in a lot of light, a little window lets in a little bit of light. Photography is like immediately is three balls juggling in the air. You got shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Those three control the exposure, and they're all fluid. They're all adjustable. ISO is a measure of the sensitivity of the camera to light, meaning the less light you need to take the photograph. So if you're using a camera set at 100 ISO, it's a very low number. ISO is a typical ISO range maybe from 50 up to 3200. So obviously at 3200, the camera is much more sensitive to light. At 100, less sensitive. So if you're shooting outside, bright sun, 100 ISO, you're fine. You're going to get good pictures. If you go inside at 100 ISO, the camera's much less sensitive to light. In order to take a picture properly, you have to shoot with a much longer shutter speed. When you're on manual, the operator makes all the decisions. You pick the shutter speed and the aperture. One of the best features about the cameras is that they'll shoot HD video, and it's one-touch video. You see the one-touch video button right here. Just by quite literally pushing one button, I'm shooting video. So you go into the menu, you set your resolution. You set it to high def, or you can shoot MPEGs and various other formats. I'm a proponent of whatever your camera is, set it to the highest resolution settings all the time. You set them up so it's going to shoot high def video. You set it up so it shoots high resolution still images. You can always go down. You can always make a smaller copy later on the computer. You can't make a bigger copy. You'll lose quality. You'll lose resolution. The picture will start to break down. The other nice feature, this camera has custom settings. If you are always shooting something in particular, some particular event or something, you can punch in those settings and save them, so then you're not readjusting your camera every time. You're just choosing custom 1 or custom 2, good to go. So if I switch to scene modes, I've got all these options. I've got portrait, I've got night scenery, I've got pet, I'm not quite sure what pet does, party mode, sunset. There's quite a few of them. So within the scene modes, there's if you're shooting night scenery, it will give you a slow shutter speed and a wide aperture. We're all used to that picture where you take a picture of somebody at night or indoors at a party, the flash goes on, and typically what happens, there's the person, they're brightly lit, and the background is totally black. With the night portrait mode, it will give you the flash plus a slow shutter speed. So the background, it's called dragging the shutter. What it does is bleeds in the light from the background. So if I'm taking a shot in the room, say there's a person sitting here, the flash is lighting them up. And then the background is lit by the tungsten lights or light coming in the windows or whatever is in the room. but it gives me a much slower shutter speed, you know, 1/8 quarter of a second, and then the light appears in the background to fill in that. One of the nicest features on this camera and on all the Panasonic cameras is the plus-minus exposure compensation. By pushing the selector dial here, you push it in and you get a plus-minus exposure compensation. So if I'm on aperture priority, I push that dial in and I want to get a brighter picture, I just dial in how much brighter I want. And you can see the corresponding aperture and shutter speed that comes up. If I want a darker picture, I dial it down and I get a significantly darker picture. You can see my aperture down here, 3.5, my shutter speed right there, 640. Reset to 0. And you're all set. You can toggle back and forth by pushing in the selector dial. Now I can change my aperture. So it's not changing the plus-minus exposure. I'm manually going in and changing the aperture. If I change the top selector dial to shutter, then you see my shutter speed lights up yellow, and I can change that. Manually go in and do that. Now if you go into the program mode, the camera will set both of those. It'll set my aperture and my shutter speed. However, I can adjust those correspondingly. One of the most useful things on any of the cameras, be they this type of camera, the DSLR cameras, the point and shoot cameras, is the focus and exposure preset. Very simple to use. Everybody's done that shot where you got your two kids sitting there and you frame them up, you get the framing right, and you take the picture and it focuses on the wall behind them. Basically the camera's the autofocus, it's focusing straight through, goes right between them and focuses. What you need to do, your best case scenario, there's what we call a half shutter. If I push the button down halfway, it locks certain settings. So if I push it down all the way, it takes the picture. If I push it down halfway, it locks the focus, locks the exposure. You see when I'm pushing the button, these green rectangles that come up, they're the focus marks. This tells me where the camera's focusing. So what I do to get that shot, I point the camera directly, put the center of the camera right on one of the kids' faces. Push that down halfway. Now it's locked the focus. It's locked the exposure. So I get a good exposure on the face, good focus on the face. Locked it. Now I'm turning the camera to reframe, still keeping my finger down on the button. So both the kids are going to be in focus and the exposure on their faces are going to be good. Then push the button. With regard to lens options, they come with a number of different lenses. This one with a 14mm to 45 lens on it. You apply the X factor. On these cameras, an X factor of 2. So you take the focal length, 14 to 45, multiply it by 2, ends up being a 28 to 90mm. So 28, pretty wide lens, good for landscapes, scenes where you've got a number of people in it, and then to a 90, great for individual shots, one person, two person, that sort of thing. And if you want to get a little further away. Also, the lenses are interchangeable. Very nice feature. One thing you remember, always turn the camera off when you're changing a lens. Little button right here, twist it off, set it aside, grab the other lens, then you're lining up the red dot on the camera with the red dot on the lens. You line them up and then twist the camera back in until it locks. You hear that click. The difference between this camera and a lot of cameras in the past, this camera does not have a viewfinder. It's just the screen on the back. And there is, however, an optional viewfinder. You can buy it as a separate piece. Pull this little gadget out the top. It slides into the hot shoe of the camera. So it makes it a little more flexible that way if you prefer using a viewfinder. You know, it's where you put it up to your eye. So that's pretty much the wrap-up of the camera. Number of great features, and in this particular camera, very compact size, and it's a solid, durable camera, very nicely made. And that's about it. for the GF1. I hope you enjoyed the review of your camera, and you can get more information on your camera. You can go to livinghd.com. Thanks for tuning in.